Hello, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to this episode of Health Talk. Today we have a very distinguished guest, as we always do. She's from Final Results. They have been in business for about 40 years. She's been teaching yoga for an additional 20 years at this point. Her name is Jen Wood. We're very honored and privileged to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me in.
Absolutely, and like I said, what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at some disciplines within the health community today in the physical fitness world.
Yes.
Specifically yoga.
Yoga.
So, Jen, what is yoga?
Yoga is it's a physical practice. It means to yoke or bind or to bring together.
Okay.
That's what yoga means. So in a sense, you can do it with breath and movement.
Sure.
It's a series of physical postures, and you can do it to relax, stress reduce.
Sure.
But yoga in itself is a series of postures that you link with your breath and movement.
So how long has it been around for?
It started in India about 5,000 years ago. We have ancient texts that we've discovered that have mantras and rituals that kind of date us about 5,000 years ago.
Okay.
Coming to the West
Sure.
was, I would say, in the 80s.
Okay.
That's when it really became big. And I will tell you, it's probably from the physical nature that it became big in the 80s.
Okay.
Because it is a fantastic workout, if you will.
Sure.
When you go through the postures, it's very physically demanding, depending on the discipline you take.
So that brings us to another question then. So there's, when we were kind of getting ready for this episode here, you start to see that there's many different disciplines or techniques, per se, with yoga. Can you explain a couple of them?
Yeah, there are. There's many of them, and you have to find one that's going to fit for you.
Sure.
So it's not about twisting into a pretzel. I think people have this preconceived notion that you're twisting into a pretzel and I can't do yoga because I can't touch my toes or I can't twist.
Right.
There are many styles. You have, your power yoga, which is a little bit more physical.
Okay.
And you have your hatha yoga, which is really focusing on your postures, your body alignment.
Sure.
You have yin yoga. Yin yoga is a little bit more of a restorative practice.
Okay.
You're holding postures a little longer, some myofascial release in that practice. So there's many practices. Iyengar has props that you can bolster yourself up and use pillows to assist you in the pose.
So at the health club at this point, are you credentialed in all these? Do you have a special credentialing in just a unique set of this, or how does it all work?
Well, we have a couple styles at the club. So a power yoga class, or what we call a vinyasa flow class, that just means that we're linking postures through an up dog or a down dog series.
Okay.
That's building heat, and that's very physically aware.
Okay.
So there's an innate sense of physical capacity to do the poses. You also have yin yoga, as I spoke before, more of a restorative practice. And then there's basic classes as well, so entry-level classes. It's yoga is really come as you are, do what you can.
Sure.
And it's at every level you're coming in. It's not that even though if you're coming to a more power class and you're a beginner, but you're looking for that type of workout and you've never done that before, you come at your level. And we have options for you, and everybody comes at their own little house of yoga.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were actually, when we were talking, getting ready for this as well, we were talking about this house of yoga.
Yeah.
Explain that.
So I like in my yoga practice, or the members' yoga practice, when they come in, I want you to think about you're coming into your house of yoga.
Sure.
And you walk into the foyer.
Sure.
And you might say, okay, this is my first or second class, so I'm just going to explore where is my body in space.
Sure.
When she tells me to get to a warrior 1 or a warrior 2, what does that mean? So I'm just kind of feeling around to my house of yoga. I'm just entry. Once you get the poses and you feel good, you might want to venture into the living room, and that's bringing your breath into your practice. So then I start to integrate, well, how am I going to breathe when I'm moving into my postures? And then as you explore your house of yoga, there's other limbs, if you will. It's an 8-limbed path to yoga. And just posture and breathing, and then internal, we call them internal locks or contractions. And you hold your belly up and in, and lift your pelvic floor, and you squeeze your quads, and so that's a whole other element. And as you start to explore your yoga, you explore your yoga house, and then it becomes less about the entry.
Sure.
It becomes less about the postures and more about the benefits you get from coming to your mat.
Which is more like mastery.
It's a and mastery. It's funny because we call it a practice for a reason.
Sure.
So even though I've been practicing for a very, very long time, I'm never a master in it.
Sure.
I'm constantly practicing. So I'm a practitioner of yoga.
That's awesome. So this is another thing that I thought was very interesting. You know, we were looking at, you know, the health of America.
Yeah.
And we're looking at overweight, obesity, and that type of thing. And then we start breaking down numbers about how many people come to a gym and how many people have gym memberships and do all that type of stuff. Can you expand on, you know, what you see the trend in the last 20 years about how many people utilize the gym, how many people utilize yoga? What trends are you seeing?
What's the trend has been for the past 10 years, there's a very small majority of people who actually join a health club.
Which, this surprises me, but anyways.
It really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
We're talking like-minded individuals here, but it is a small percentage. I think that there's inhibitions and there's preconceived notions of what it feels like to be a member of a health club or
Sure.
come into a yoga class.
Yeah.
So I just ask that you drop those inhibitions because it really is for your benefit. We want to live longer. We want to have a quality of life.
Sure.
We're not looking to be bodybuilders. We're not looking to be master yogis.
Sure.
We're looking to just pick up the kids and play with them and,
Absolutely.
you know, take the laundry basket up and down the steps and be not out of breath and
Yeah,
strong.
so that brings us to what are some of the benefits of yoga then? You know, or even physical exercise in general, but what are some of the benefits of that?
Well, benefits of yoga are going to be, number one, increased flexibility. Everyone says, well, I have to get into yoga because I need to be able to open up my hips and
Right.
touch my toes
Right.
or whatever. They come to it because their doctor told them to.
Sure.
Their healthcare professional said, you know, you're a little stressed or your blood pressure is a little high. You'd be good to go do a yoga class.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of a blind statement. They don't really know what that means. I know
Right.
I need to do yoga, but I don't know where I'm supposed to go.
Sure. So if somebody would come to your place and want to join and become involved in a yoga class at this point,
Right.
what could their experience be like? What would they be expected to see? or
The
feel?
first thing they would do is meet with either myself or one of my employees, and you know, you have to really, as we're sitting down and talking about yoga,
Sure.
that's what I will do with you. I will sit down and talk about what are you looking for, what are your limitations, are there any issues that I need to know about, and then I can guide you as to what style of yoga
Sure.
that we offer that I'd like you to see, and then also modifications within that style.
For sure. And I think that we were talking about this as well, is that when we look at intimidations and that type of
Yeah.
stuff and how to break some of those barriers down, what do you see as some of the biggest intimidations that sit in front of people that might not choose either a health club or a yoga class?
I think fear is
Yeah.
number one.
And why is that?
Again, to the preconceived notions.
Okay.
Probably very similar as to why people are afraid of chiropractic.
Sure.
So we sit in the same space of wanting to educate.
Okay.
So when you come in, I want to educate you. I want to break down the barriers of fear.
Sure.
Know that you are in some great hands.
Sure.
Your great hands here, great hands here, and you know, just be free to be. That's what I want you. I want
Right.
you to be free to be.
Do you find that most people who are in the class try to keep up with the instructor, or they're the person who's next to them, or is that a tough thing for people to lay down?
It is. It is. You know, that's an innate nature, I think, to be
The competitiveness.
competitive and have this. Well, if she's going here, I want to go there, and that is the hugest problem, I think, of barrier. One of the huge barriers is ego.
Right.
So, not really knowing how to start, being afraid, and then once you do start, is to drop the ego.
Sure.
The ego is very, very, whether that is on yourself or whether that is out. You have your ego, your id, your superego.
Gotcha.
And that's another thing we explore in our practice as well. Just to be conscious, to be here in the moment, enjoy it, unroll
Sure.
your mat,
Yeah.
and just be.
So let's kind of turn a little bit to science and research right now.
Yeah.
And so this is where I think this is some of the most interesting thing has laid, you know, that has been the direction of the evidence over the last 10 years at least, that we're starting to see some of these things. When you look at high cholesterol, you know, blood pressures, heart, stroke, that type of stuff, what type of literature are you coming across right now on the benefits of this from a yoga standpoint?
exercise in itself, right, we said that directly relates to lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol level, lower heart rate.
Sure.
When you oxygenate the blood
Sure.
through breath, you have a brighter brain capacity.
Sure.
You're a little bit more alert. You can sleep better. So
Yeah.
when we integrate the breath into our yoga practice, not only are we getting the increased flexibility, we're getting increased mobility, we're getting stress reduced, we're getting a little bit of physical activity.
Sure.
So we're toning our body and our heart at the same time.
Sure.
Depending on the yoga that you do, you can elevate your heart rate and get quite the sweat going on so you can burn some calories.
Sure.
Weight management.
Yes.
I've seen quite the bodies transformed in a power yoga
Good
sense.
sense.
Yeah.
Which is all interesting, especially because you don't think that you're doing a lot in yoga, yet you can be sweating like heck.
You can. And, when you think about holding a warrior two
Sure.
deeply,
Yeah.
that's an uncomfortable position to
Sure.
be in
Yeah,
for an
absolutely.
extended amount of time. But then on the flip side of that, you have your yin yoga practice, which is very calm and restorative, and you're holding poses for maybe 5 minutes. But it's a different form of release. So not to say that it is a yin practice, but it does have some yang energy. So yin and yang
Yeah, let's
together.
explain that, because I don't think people all know what yin and yang is. So what is that?
So yang energy is light and bright and changing.
Okay.
So in a power yoga sense, you are a yang energy base.
Okay.
Because we want to change the world, we want to change our bodies, we want to be powerful and strong and
Sure.
have heat.
Right.
The opposite of that is yin. It is retreating. It is dark. It is calm. It is existing as is.
Okay.
And it's developing two different tissues.
Sure.
So in a yang practice, it is muscular strength and conditioning.
Sure.
And in a yin practice, it's the myofascial release. It is the existing as is. It's more of the breath and surrendering into the pose, using bolsters and yoga blocks to assist.
So can, a yin yoga, can that transfer over into real life on anxiety, depression?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have a lot of people coming. I have one gentleman that comes that suffered an injury in a car accident. So what he used to be is not what he is now.
Sure, right.
So he had to change his practice.
Sure.
And the yin is just doing amazing things to his body
Sure.
and to his psyche.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
has a trickle-over effect
Yes.
as well. So when we look at, yoga and its evolution, and we look at it from the years, what do you think has been the biggest change in the last 20 years with yoga? Is it just the acceptance?
I think it's the acceptance and it's the wide variety of yoga. In the 80s, it was yoga. Came from the east to the west.
Sure.
And it was one style,
Sure.
basically. So as we've become more educated, and educated consumers as well, they're looking for different styles. So I think that's the biggest difference in the last 10 years, I'd say. I was just doing some research, too, on the 2018 trends
Yeah.
in our industry, and some of them that continue to be big are strength training and
Yes.
group fitness, small group training, doing it with your friends, working out with your friends. Yoga still is a hot trend.
Sure.
It continues to be a trend. So over the last 10 years, that's less now trend than mainstay.
Mainstay, right. Do you look for certain people that might be a fit into that program? Are athletes, would it be recommended for athletes? Would it be recommended for senior citizens? How do you kind of look at that? Is there any age group that's not acceptable for this?
Absolutely not. Everyone's accepted in yoga.
Sure.
You have different goals and focuses. An athlete would have a different goal than, say, a senior.
Sure.
An athlete is looking for increased flexibility and mobility and are notoriously tight because of the sport they play or what they're
Which then translates probably to performance.
to performance. It will help.
Okay.
For example, my son is
Sure.
a wrestler,
Yeah.
and he is notoriously tight in the hips. So
Right.
he comes into a yin yoga practice to open up his hips so that he can be on the mat and
Sure.
be more effective on the mat.
Senior citizen, does that help with balance? Because this is a major thing that we see in the healthcare world
Yes.
that needs to be addressed.
I actually teach a senior yoga class that is chair-based.
Okay.
So we actually bring them out behind the chairs. Their balance and strength has improved greatly over the last 10 years that I've been doing the chair yoga class. A lot of stories saying where I wasn't able to walk downstairs without holding on, now I am.
Right.
Now I can get down on the ground and get back up without assistance. And that's huge. That's huge.
Absolutely, because like what we see in today's healthcare, crisis is that, broken hips and those types of things. And usually there's a kind of always that question, does the hip break and then you fall, or do you fall and then break the hip? And it's kind of always out there. But we know that balance is a major factor as we get older that we start to lose. We
lose the balance because as we age, quote unquote, the glutes and the quads and the hamstrings naturally atrophy.
Sure.
And that doesn't have to be the way.
Sure.
So if you implement a yoga practice, even at age 60 or 70, it's beneficial as than not.
Absolutely. So with all this information that you have and all the experience that you've had over the last 2 decades, what is your take-home message for the people who are going to view this over the next few weeks?
My take-home message is just come as you are, do what you can. And we can definitely help you at Final Results Fitness. You can have a free 2-week trial to try it. And, meet with me and I can help you navigate the waters of yoga. Just awesome. Know that it's don't be afraid. We'll take you by the hand. And even if you come into a regular power class is what you want to come into, I'll take you there. We'll do it together. We'll go through our house of yoga together. Just don't be afraid. Come on in, try it. Get involved in flexibility for your health, great heart health, reducing your blood pressure, blood cholesterol level without medication.
Sure.
And just, be free to be. Come to your mat and know that this is what's happening this day, as to not judge it against another day.
Absolutely. Jen, thank you very much for coming on to the show.
You're welcome.
It was
Thank
great
you for
to have
having me.
Absolutely. A lot of great information. So all I can say is that as a healthcare practitioner and an athlete myself, yoga is a very important component of my life as well. And I will just tell you that the benefits of it are second to none on performance, on overall health, and overall, I'll just say, understanding the present moment. Good day and good health.